South Florida's warm waters, famous wrecks, and miles of coral reefs make the region a popular dive destination that stretches from Jupiter south to the dry Tortugas. For decades, tourists have come from all over to experience its beauty. And in more recent years, an unassuming dive spot in Palm Beach County has also risen in popularity.
When it was rated one of the top 10 beach dives in the U.S., that just kind of made everybody go, oh, I got to go check this out, you know? It's a nice sight.
The colors, the things we find here, I mean, it's insane. There are so many different varieties of creatures here. It's very surprising.
It's common to see like your batfish, flying gurnards. You got your yellow rays, sharp-tailed eels. You have blennies.
Nudibranchs. You have octopus, sea robins, frogfish, crabs, shrimp, urchins, starfish. I could go on for days. And a lot of these things, you might catch them mating, eating. So it's very beautiful and very unique.
A couple weeks ago, I was surfacing and a new diver came up and he said, oh my God, I saw a manatee and a seahorse. He's thrilled, he'll be back.
This is the Blue Heron Bridge in Riviera Beach, Florida. Located close to the Palm Beach Inlet, it crosses the Lake Worth Lagoon. And while thousands of people cross this bridge every year, only a few know the real treasure that lies beneath it.
Every dive at the Blue Heron Bridge will always be different. You can never expect it to be the same.
We've found all kinds of things that you just don't see elsewhere, which is just so exciting for a lot of people.
Major funding for this program was provided by the Batchelor Foundation, encouraging people to preserve and protect America's underwater resources. And by Divers Direct, Emotion Sports, inspiring the pursuit of adventure and water sports. And by the following, in memory of Harriet Fagan, the Do Unto Others Trust, and the Friends of Changing Seas.
From land, it looks just like any other bridge crossing over the Intracoastal Waterway in South Florida. Underneath the bridge, inside Phil Foster Park, people relax on the beach, fish, and play in the water.
Once you come over the bridge, you come into the parking lot, and you're like, is there actually anything here?
But beneath the surface, there's a secret universe waiting to be discovered. Here, the odd-looking, the masters of disguise, and the downright ugly go about their daily business of digging holes, hoarding shells, and doing whatever it is marine creatures do.
We've had top photographers from all over that come here to get behavior pictures of creatures and fish. So it's a special place.
It's easy for people just to park their car a few yards away from the bridge and literally just gear up and get in the water. And you're not gonna be in any deeper than 20 feet. Mainly, you're gonna end up in like 10 to 15 feet of water for most of your dive.
This area is considered muck diving because it's a sandy bottom. It's not a pretty coral reef.
The best time to start a dive would be about an hour before high tide. Then the tide slows down, and then about an hour after high tide.
Because you don't wanna dive in murky water.
Local dive instructors have long been familiar with the bridge.
Many years ago, I would bring my students to the bridge when we couldn't get out in the ocean. From day one, I saw a seahorse. I was hooked.
I would say about 10 years ago is when it really started to pick up notice, and the photography is what really put it on the map.
Among the many unique creatures found at the bridge are 2 species of octopuses.
The 2 species I'm studying is Octopus vulgaris, so that's the common octopus, and Macrotypus diphilippi, so that's the Atlantic long-arm octopus. You can also call it the mimic octopus. The common octopus, his arms are shorter than the long-arm species, a little bit thicker, and he has a larger mantle, and he gets to be a bigger size. Just like the name, the long-arm has super long arms, and it has a smaller mantle.
Chelsea Bennis is a graduate student working on her PhD at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida.
I dive the bridge for research, usually about 3 times a week, sometimes 4, as much as I can get out. The octopuses do stay year-round, however, their abundance does change. During the winter time, I barely see any octopuses there.
Chelsea, who's been nicknamed Octogirl by other divers at the bridge, looks at how these 2 species of octopus coexist in the area.
So I want to know, are the 2 species grouping together? Are they living in different sections? Are they overlapping at all?
To find out, Chelsea searches the area for octopus dens and records their GPS locations.
I have been recording occupied dens through GPS for almost 3 years. And the first year when I recorded occupied dens for each species, for the common octopus, I recorded over 100 dens. And for the long arm, I recorded over 50 dens.
When she comes across a den, she also closely analyzes the surrounding habitat using a quadrant made of PVC pipes.
I will swim over, find an octopus, and then put the quadrant directly over the octopus and then take a picture of that known area. So I term this the immediate habitat, and then I'll do 8 more photos in a large square to be the microhabitat. And with all these photos, I'll input those into a software system that overlays 50 random points. And when I see these points on the computer screen, I then code for those points, if those points are on sand, if they're on rock, or if they're on rubble. What I've been seeing for the long-arm species is that most of their habitat is comprised of sand. And for the common octopus, I'm seeing that their habitat is comprised of rock, rubble, and other types of structure.
The entrances to the dens of the 2 species tend to look different as well, with the common octopus exhibiting a knack for decorating and collecting.
We like to call the common octopus the messy eater. After he's done eating a prey item, he will discard the shells outside of his den and kind of leave them all around. And he also does take older shells and rock and rubble that are around and will decorate his den with them. So they usually use those shells to kind of barricade themselves or make sure that no predators can see them. And this is pretty much the opposite for the long-arm species. It does not decorate its den. It's just this tiny little hole in the sand.
When Chelsea began her research, she expected to find the 2 species in separate sections beneath the bridge. But much to her surprise, she discovered that the locations of the 2 species dens overlap in some areas.
So with this spatial overlap, how are they able to not, compete with each other?
To find out, Chelsea studies the animals' feeding habits.
I put down a 24-hour camera attached to an external battery and also has a red LED light to get nighttime footage. And I will leave this camera near an octopus den, weighted and anchored, and it will get 24-hour video of when the octopus leaves to go forage and when the octopus returns to its den. And what we have seen so far is that the common octopus is foraging during the nocturnal hours, and the longarm is foraging during sometimes late morning and early afternoon. So if they are possibly eating the same food item, they're eating it at different times, so they do not compete or run into each other.
To figure out what the two species feed on, Chelsea collects prey remains for further analysis.
Like I said before, the common octopus is a messy eater and leaves his prey remains around the den, and so we will collect any fresh prey remains from the octopus and take them back to the lab and ID them. It's a little bit trickier for the longarm. They usually don't leave any trace of what they eat around their dens, so we usually have to catch them eating. And we can do this by following them during foraging or catching them eating a prey item on the octopus monitoring device. And so from that, we can ID prey species. So another thing that I'm looking at with my research is the diet of the two species. We have seen the common octopus eat more bivalves, more clams, than the longarm. And the longarm is eating more crab species. However, there is some overlap. We see that both species eat the same bivalve species and crab species.
The octopus's unique physiology helps them eat hard-shelled prey.
They use venom to help them get prey items. So the bivalve has muscles that will close the shell, and the octopus will inject the venom to paralyze the muscles, and so that relaxes the muscles, the bivalve opens up, and then the octopus can get the meat. So they do have a beak similar to a bird beak, so that does help them crush shells or crush the carapace of a crab.
Chelsea also observes the animal's foraging behaviors.
If they're foraging on sand, the octopus will extend all its arms and kind of check out different holes and crevices. And both species use that a lot on sand. A different foraging behavior that I see in the longarm is the flounder swimming or flounder mimicry. A common foraging behavior that I see in the common octopus is the parachute attack. It kind of pounces on a rock or possibly a sponge and extends its webbing all around, and that kind of traps the prey. Another foraging behavior is a tripod stance, I like to call it, for the longarm. And they possibly use it as kind of like a lookout tower.
Octopuses are masters of disguise, able to change their shape and color to match their surroundings.
Octopuses have a bunch of tricks to avoid predators. So they have no external shell. So they have, mastered camouflage and mimicry and masquerade. So they're either using these behaviors to communicate with each other or to deter or hide from a predator. One time during a foraging event, the longarm actually came out of its den, and there was some algae and some hydroids in the back, and it actually threw its arms up like the algae and the hydroids and then just started moving, and it kept moving its arms like the algae. The octopus has a ton of predators. We have footage of a marine bird diving down to try to attack the octopus, and you can see in the video the octopus just kind of swats the bird away.
Octopuses, which are closely related to squid and cuttlefish, display a variety of defense mechanisms.
So usually they will try to camouflage or look like something else if there's a predator around. However, if that doesn't work, sometimes they'll do an ink in the face and then jet or swim away. One of the things that the funnel is used for is jet propulsion. This is also the location where the ink comes out.
And that isn't the only alien-like body feature. Octopuses have no skeletons, making it possible to squeeze their large bodies through tiny openings. They also have 3 hearts, and their copper-rich blood appears blue. What's even more fascinating is the animal's highly complex nervous system. The total number of neurons found in the nerve cords of the 8 arms of an octopus is 3 times the number of neurons found in the brain. This means each arm can show a variety of complex independent reflex actions. A severed arm, for example, can continue foraging for a while without being attached to the octopus's body.
They can drop an arm and regenerate it. Suckers have multiple purposes, so one of them is to taste the prey, and if there is a prey item that they see that they want to grab, the suckers will help them grab it and then pull it underneath their web and then into their mouth. It also helps the octopus attach to rocks or to stay in one place if there might be a strong current. So the suckers actually have little grooves in them, and that helps them attach to surfaces that are not smooth.
One hypothesis is that the Blue Heron Bridge is a mating and nursery ground for the 2 species of octopus. Chelsea has observed the animals mating and sees many juveniles in the spring and summer.
For the mating behavior, the male will extend its sex arm known as the hectocotylus. And so this hectocotylus has a groove in it and will deliver sperm packets to the female's reproductive organs that are located in her mantle. Fertilize the eggs, and then the female will find usually a safe spot for her eggs and usually deposit those eggs on a hard substrate. So a lot of the time when we see females with eggs at the bridge, we see them in pipes, to kind of hide them for predators, and stay with them to guard them, to keep the eggs clean, and to aerate the eggs until they hatch.
Unfortunately for the octopuses, mating is a deadly proposition.
The female stays with the eggs for the duration until they hatch. So she is usually not leaving to forage and to feed on anything, and so she becomes very weak afterwards and dies. They like to say that octopuses are rock stars. They live fast and die young. So usually the lifespan of an octopus is around 1 to 2 years, but depending on species, it can be longer.
What makes octopuses really fascinating is the fact that they are highly intelligent creatures.
They have the largest brain of any invertebrate, and so a lot of their activities are from previously learned experiences.
They can form memories about on the same level as some dogs and small mammals. There are about 500 million neurons in the octopus nervous system, and that's about on par with what we have in dogs. So that explains kind of the number of different connections that are happening in the brain. And basically anything that you can see that's done in a lab with a mouse or a rat, you can train an octopus to do underwater. And my research focuses on octopus and cuttlefish and squid and how these cephalopods have evolved a really rich behavioral repertoire and how they have achieved these innovations independently of any other lineage that has such behavioral complexity. So basically, I'm looking at the way that the brain cells in the circuit of octopus brains communicate with one another, and then comparing that to what we know about vertebrate learning and memory. They're just awesomely strange animals.
Another group of animals that makes the Blue Heron Bridge a favorite spot for macro underwater photographers is nudibranchs.
I photographed one, a beautiful one that was very frilly and pink and blue, and I was just blown away by the colors, and that started my love affair. Nudibranchs are a kind of sea slug. The diversity, the colors, the body shapes, the sizes is incredible. They're stunning.
Anne DuPont is a photographer and citizen scientist who co-authored a book on Caribbean sea slugs.
At the Blue Heron Bridge in Lake Worth Lagoon, I have documented, with the help of other divers and photographers, over 130 Caribbean species. This book has about 300 sea slugs in it. Over a third of these are found at Blue Heron Bridge. We do see different sea slugs and nudibranchs at different times of the year, but it's because at different times of the year there are food sources here. Some of them live on sponges, some of them live in the sand. It just depends on the species. One of my very favorites lives its whole life on the Cassiopeia upside down jelly. It lives in the jellyfish. It feeds on the jelly, it lays its eggs on the jelly, and it travels everywhere the sea jelly goes. That you might call a floating nudibranch.
Finding and photographing nudibranchs takes skill.
We use diopters, we put on our reading contacts, and we don't move when we're searching for them because, first of all, they could blend so well with the background. So you could go right by one and not even know it. Second of all, a lot of them are very tiny. I'm talking about 3 millimeters. That's tiny. So it's shallow here. It gives you more time to search. There are nudibranchs on the reefs, but you have a limited amount of time. We're diving here 2 to 4 hours, so you have much more time to find them. If you want to find nudibranchs, you have to search what they eat, which could be a hydroid, it could be in the sand, it could be on algae.
You have to know the anatomy of a nudibranch because you're looking at a little brightly colored object in the hydroids crawling. So you have to know the head, the rhinophores, the tail, otherwise you get a lot of butt shots.
There's several undescribed nudibranchs that we know are here. So we send the photos to scientists, say, look what we found. So if someone else describes it, we can say, oh yeah, we have that here. That's what keeps us coming back. You always have the chance to find something new and different.
We were called the Ladies of the Muck. And several other names like that, but the mucksters kind of stuck. A very passionate, strong team that contribute to the species.
The incredible biodiversity found beneath the bridge makes it a world-renowned dive site that is easy to access. Because of this, many divers would like to see the area turned into a marine sanctuary to provide better protections for the animals that live there. This includes making it illegal for people to collect animals for their aquariums.
So they're not allowed to commercially collect, but they do allow, unfortunately, private collecting. The problem that I have with that is that there's plenty of places for the collectors to go and collect. The park to me is such a big attraction for everybody, newcomers, people who are snorkeling. It's a free park. When they come in and they collect, it's just, not good for the ecosystem. And you have animals there that actually mate, and then what ends up happening is you take that mate away and now they're not going to mate for that year, and that also causes damage. And then you have, of course, the problem where a lot of the people who are amateurs who don't know anything about collecting for their aquarium tanks, they get the animal and it dies later.
Many divers are also very concerned about the impact nearby proposed dredging projects could have on the ecosystem beneath the bridge.
There's been dredging in the past. To me, and I'm not a marine biologist, but the dredging stirs up the silt and the sediment, and it suffocates and smothers the food sources and the small invertebrates. So no food, no animals.
This happened when they were working on the East Bridge. They tore it up and rebuilt it. And we couldn't dive there for quite a while. And when we did get a chance to go back, everything was covered. And it took quite a while for the whole ecosystem to come back.
In the economy that depends here locally from all the divers spending money at the local dive shops, restaurants, it's going to have a big impact because no one is going to want to dive in visibility where they can't see.
While dredging is still up for debate, divers from around the world will continue visiting the bridge to enjoy this octopus's garden in the sea.
The Blue Heron Bridge has appeared in so many magazines around the world, and it's actually considered one of the top 50 dive sites for people to visit at least once. But once you visit it once, you're gonna wanna come back.
We're just very passionate about it.
Whenever I'm just having a bad day, when I go on the bridge and I can just sit there and just meditate, be surprised at all the little things you'll see. I go there every chance I get. I love it.
Major funding for this program was provided by the Batchelor Foundation, encouraging people to preserve and protect America's underwater resources. And by Divers Direct, Emotion Sports, inspiring the pursuit of adventure and water sports. And by the following, in memory of Harriet Fagan, the Do Unto Others Trust, and the Friends of Changing Seas.